Meanwhile, Dakkers is assassinated by Cetrion, who is in cahoots with Prince Sect, who learns from Cetrion about the freed slaves and Uriarna's supposed demise. Pleased by the news, Sect asks Cetrion to spread the news of Uriarna's death and relishes that he now is the sole heir to the throne. Returning to Ark's group, both Ark and Gomen have another manly bonding moment with each other, and Chiom restates her vow to Arian that she hopes to become stronger. Time passes and Ark's group returns to Olaf. They ride on a boat steered by Gomen and learn from Chiom that Gomen and her will head to a hidden village in the Calcut Mountains. She then claims that she'll give them the important information she had promised them. In the Grand Duchy of Limbold, Uriarna reaches her sister Siriarna's castle and she learns from her sister about her supposed demise. Inside the castle, Siriarna informs Uriarna and her attendee Ferna how news of Dakkers killed her and was sequentially slain by Cetrion. Evidence of her death was inferred solely from the fact that the necklace that she always wore from their mother was found. Ferna then notes that the same necklace went missing. After contemplating the situation over, Uriarna tells her sister not to inform her father about her survival and instead hopes to continue her duty by speaking to the elves. Back to Ark's group. Arian relays a message through a whisper bird so Danka can be brought up to date with the current events. A flashback of the information given by Chiom that the location of the remaining elven slaves are at the Holy Revlon Empire. As they head to the east toward the Empire, Ark wonders why Arian's attitude changed so much, but wonders more about what new adventures lie ahead of them in the said empire. Meanwhile, in the imperial capital of the Holy Revlon Empire, Emperor Domitianus learns of the death of Dakkers from his chancellor Velmoaz. Although pleased by the news that Uriarna is dead, Velmoaz informs Domitianus that the rings they provided to Dakkers were broken and that a third person is involved in killing the princess. Domitianus speculates that Sect was the likely one to do it and asks about Fumba's progress in bringing Olaf to ruin. Velmoaz happily announces that his progress is coming along smoothly. Elsewhere, a worm-like monster with a ring attached to it kills a flying creature as Fumba himself observes from a safe location. 10. In a barren wasteland, a flock of sand wyverns flies in the sky and Ark becomes super excited by their presence. On the other hand, Arian notes that it's because of them that the whisper bird is too afraid to fly and deliver a message to Danka. Hence, Ark casts the AoE spell Lightning Damper to disperse the wyverns from the area. However, it works too well as it affects Arian, the Whisper Bird, and Ponta too. As Ark checks up on the group and frantically tries to deduce what went wrong, unbeknownst to him, someone was watching and taking notes on him. By dusk, the group reaches a town, and Ark formally apologizes for his actions after he tried to disperse the wyverns. From there, Arian discloses the plan on how they'll reach the Revlon Empire, and Ark mentions Arian's attitude since Chiom informed them about the Empire. To her admission, Arian claims that unlike the Rodan Kingdom Elven, slavery is allowed and her being an elf is notably disconcerting. They're then approached by the person spying on them before he introduced himself as Karsi Held, an elven monster researcher. Before Karsi could fully introduce himself, Arian puts a pot over his head and warns him that being an elf in a human settlement is dangerous. However, contrary to that notion, Karsi was a regular in the bar and was greeted warmly by its patrons. With a mug of beer, Karsi explains to them that he's lived in the town for 10 years and deduces that Arian happens to be a dark elf. He also mentions that he hopes humans and elves can one day coexist. Although Arian notes that Karsi's carefree attitude toward living with humans is appalling. However, Karsi argues that Arian is a hypocrite, noting she's traveling with a human in full-plated armor accompanied by a spirit animal. To that point, Arian claims that Ark is a special case, and he then asks Karsi what his business is with them. Karsi then requests that they help him with his research on monsters, and Arian flatly refuses, but Karsi offers them a map of the Revlon Empire as a reward for their services. Upon hearing this, Arian calls out Karsi for eavesdropping on their conversation, but Ark believes the map is a valuable item for their journey. The deal is sweetened when Karsi offers a bestiary as well, which Ark convinces Arian to agree to the request. After that is settled, Darcy agrees to the job, and Karsi informs the two to meet him at the town entrance the next day. Afterward, Ark pays for the room and board at the inn, and the bar innkeeper gives them a whole barrel of alcohol for their troubles. Inside their room, Ark and Arian enjoy the alcohol while talking about Karsi's dream of elves and humans coexisting. Amid this, Arian gets drunk and apprehensive toward Ark. The morning after, Arian wakes up with a hangover and mistakes Ark for a skeleton in her room. Later, they meet with Karsi, who introduces them to his companion and informs them that the whole town heard them last night. Hearing this makes Arian want to kill Karsi, but Ark stops her. Arian is shown to be rather ill thanks to the combination of her hangover, motion sickness, and not to mention the awful smell coming from their cart. Karsi explains that the awful smell was goblin corpses, and they'll be used as bait for catching a sandworm. The human companion of Karsi then gives Ark a bottle of tea for Arian's hangover, but she's hesitant to take it. However, Karsi assures her that his friend is trustworthy. Arian then drinks it and compliments its delicious taste, making Karsi's companion smile. Ark then asks for information on the sandworm they're hunting, and Karsi elaborates on it. Arian then notices that the cart behind them is gone, and then the sandworm in question appears and is considerably bigger than expected. Spotting Karsi's companion by the broken cart, Arian tries to rescue him, but is ambushed by the sandworm, so she tries to exploit its weakness to fire with a fire spell. However, her attack against it was futile, and the sandworm tries to attack her, but Arc manages to save her in the nick of time, allowing her and Karsi's companion to retreat to a safe location. Taking advantage of the situation, Arc pulls the sandworm out from the ground and, using his immense strength, slams it to the ground. Once the sandworm was knocked out, the attached ring disappeared. Later that day, the sandworm is tied up and brought back to the town. There, Karsi gives the two their reward, but Arian asks Karsi why he lives amongst humans before they journey forth. A tad surprised by the question, Karsi answers that he figures he loves them. Karsi explains that his experience in the village he was raised in wasn't pleasant. Although Karsi's impression was near the same when he moved to his current residence, he's grown to love humans and foresees a time when humans and elves can coexist. Despite Karsi's dream, Arian doesn't believe it's possible. Karsi then asks if she's ever heard of Lambert Town, which is a port in Roden governed by a human named Petros du Lambert and his wife Teresa. Hearing this astonishes Arian, who thinks Karsi is lying and that the marriage was under coercion if it's true. However, Karsi assures Arian that it wasn't. Petros who saved Teresa from slavery, and after they developed feeling for each other, they got married. Since then, they hope to improve the relationships between elves and humans. Arc and Arian then continue their journey and discuss the possibility of coexisting between humans and elves. Meanwhile, an unnamed man from Revlon reports to Fumba as he fondles a couple of women by his side about the recent number of missing people. Fumba then shows the man the monster he has in store for the next attack and feeds one of his women to it, making the Revlon man sick to his stomach. 11. Arriving at the border town of Kasek, Arc figures they've finally arrived in the Revlon Empire, the place where the captured elves were being imprisoned in. Because of the tight security in the vicinity, they decide to ask around town while trying not to draw attention themselves. By dusk, Arc reviews what he's learned that noises are coming from the castle and that people from the town have mysteriously disappeared over time. However, there's still no word about elves being held captive there. Before Arc and Ponta regroup with Arian, they hear a woman screaming and find a lady in an alleyway being confronted by a trio of men. Arc arrives at the scene and deals with the brutes. Soon, Arian arrives and after seeing Arc with the lady at his bosom, suggests she leaves, and terrified of Arian's malignant voice, the lady scurries off. That night in his fortress, Fumba learns from the three men who tried to capture the lady in the alleyway of their failure, so he feeds them to his white tiger monster. Outside of the fortress, Arc and the group proceed toward the fortress while Arc notes Arian's prickly nature. Once inside the fortress, Arian locates a hidden stairway, and as they walk down it, the pungent smell of beasts is noted. At the bottom of the stairs, the two guards guarding the solid iron gate are swiftly dealt with. However, Arian has trouble trying open it. Arc then tries and figures out that it slides open, which upsets Arian that a door functions like that. Behind the gates were rows of jail cells reeking an intense stench, and Arian finds bits of animal fur littered across the ground. Ponta then finds another iron gate that Arc opens, and behind it, the group finds a massive underground space with pillars all around the area. Fumba then arrives and notes that he came to investigate what was alerting his monsters. He then spots Arian and, finding her pretty, orders her to be his and deal with Arc. Seemingly possessed, Arian attacks Arc and reveals that she's a dark elf, which gets Fumba elated and riled up. He then demands that Arian deal with Arc faster, so Arc tries to use Uncurse on her, but it doesn't work. Arian has a dream where she's met by her sister Eben underneath a large tree who says it's time for them to train. Eben's reason is that Arian is weak, and weakness is evil, and to combat this, she has to become strong, so she can protect the elves being captured by humans. Eben then demands that Arian draw her sword and show just how strong she is. Back in reality, Arc casts Uncurse multiple times, which never works. Arc accesses the situation about Arian's condition and spots something in Arian's hood and has Ponta deal with it. Ponta finds an imp inside of her hood and once revealed, Arc casts Fireball to eliminate it. As a reward for Arc figuring out his trick for possessing Arian, Fumba introduces himself by his full name and job title, Monster Sorcerer. He goes on to explain the extent of his skill in his profession which concerns Arc and then spots the rings attached to his belt match the ones he's encountered before in his travels. Figuring that Arc doesn't believe him, Fumba summons his white tiger monster to deal with him. Arc places Arian at a safe distance and asks Fumba about the elves who arrived there 4 months ago. Fumba then reveals that while most of them were sent to the Empire for their magical experiments, the remaining ones were used for his amusement. Hearing that, Arc slices off the monster's head with a single swipe and admits that he's encountered a fair amount of villainy since he's arrived in that land. However, to Arc's confession, Fumba's actions have fervently stroked the flames of his rage to a fever pitch. Unfazed by this, Fumba summons a horde of monsters, but Arc briskly deals with them all with his sword and skills like Shield Bash. Still unfazed by this outcome, Fumba points out that Arian is in a pinch, and Arc then sees that an orc was about to crush her with its club. However, the orc is entrapped in a body of water called Liquid Prison created by Chiom. Although Fumba tries to summon more monsters, he's told by Chiom that her comrades have eliminated them all. Surprised by Chiyome's arrival, Chiyome reveals that she told Arian that she and her comrades would arrive later. Arc realizes that Chiyome was Arian's intel and did not learn any of this from Arian due to her prickly attitude. Just then the ground starts to tremor and Fumba claims that his masterpiece is hungry and they'll settle the score outside and flees the scene. Teleporting outside with Arian in his arms and both Ponta and Chiyome on his shoulders, Arc recognizes the monster that escapes from the fortress as a Hydra. 12. Arc notices the rings on the Hydra that emerge from the fortress, and Chiyome suggests a tactical retreat. However, before they can, the Hydra fires off a fireball straight at them. Fumaba watches this through the Hydra and relishes his victory over Arc's group. A flashback shows Fumba being rejected by his clan for being weak as he sought superficial power. He would later gain an audience with Emperor Domitianus and Lord Chancellor Valmoas and would be granted some authority in his land in exchange for his loyalty. Back in the present, Fumba sends the Hydra to Kasek to feed upon its inhabitants. Meanwhile, Arc and Chiyome are shown to be both alive as Arc's shield magic protected them. Arian was also alive and was experiencing a calm rage, revealing that although she was in a trance, she could hear everything that Fumba said about what happened to the captured elves. Despite Arian wanting to go after Fumba, Arc suggested that he hunt the Hydra heading for Kasek. Figuring Arc could do it alone, Chiyome and Arian go by themselves to hunt Fumba. In the Holy East Revlon Empire, Valmoas gives Emperor Domitianus an update concerning the Destroyer of Nations, and the rings of submission created from the analysis of Fumba's sorcery are nearly complete. The Hydra was closing in on Kasek, and the city guards raised an alarm as the head guard ordered preparations for an evacuation. Catching up to the Hydra, Arc uses his Wyvern Slash to catch its attention and follows up with a Shield Bash and Armor Lariat. An astonished Fumba witnesses this as it plays out, and then Arc dodges its Flame Breath with a Dimension move, but one of the heads bites down on him, despite the other heads about to fire off fireballs at the entrapped Arc. He defends himself with his magic, and in the process, the head that entrapped him is destroyed. Using his Judgment skill, Arc destroys 3 of the Hydra heads, only for them to regenerate. Teleporting to a safe distance, Arc prepares to use a magic spell he's never used before and summons Ifrit to face off against the Hydra. Elsewhere, Ponta leads Arian and Chiyome to Fumba's location, and he was amused by Arian's presence, figuring she was there to become his. After a brief back and forth talk between Fumba and her, Fumba tries to possess Arian again with some imp, but she kills them before he can. Chiyome also scars his back, revealing he had a special spellcrest seal on his back that helped him control his monsters. Fumba warns him that the Hydra is now out of his control and will kill everyone in the city. Arian then assures Chiyome that everything will be alright because Arc is down there to fight against the Hydra and then proceeds to incinerate Fumba with her flame sword. Back to Arc's side, through the combined efforts of Arc and his summon, Ifrit, they destroy the Hydra. Once Arc regroups with Arian, Chiyome, and Ponta, a whisper bird sent by Danka arrives and conveys that Princess Uriarna has met with one of the great elven elders, Fangas. The meeting between them was to settle the matters between their respective kingdoms. Prince's sect and Dakars are mentioned as conspirators with the Revlon Empire as well. Princess Uriarna promises that if the Revlon Empire invaded the elven lands, the Olav kingdom would help defend them. Fangas agrees to these terms and shakes Uriarna's hand on it. Returning to Arc's group, they walk down a dirt path. Arc and the group talk about the coexistence between humans and elves. In the kingdom of Olav, Cetrian reports to Prince Sex that Princess Uriarna survived, and her negotiations with the elves were a success, considering the possibility of a double agent. Prince Sex brushes this off and claims an alternate path to achieve their goal will be taken. In her room, Uriarna believes that she died once before but was brought back to life to fulfill her angel's wishes. News of the deaths of the Hydra and Fumba reach Domitianus, who considers it no loss whatsoever and is curious to know who slew the Hydra. Meanwhile, Arc unintentionally reveals his face to Chiyome and is then filled in on Arc's condition. It's decided that after they reach Lalatoya, Arian will guide Arc to Lord Crown. Excited about that trip, Arc also asks to see Chiyome's hometown, and she sheepishly agrees. So that's the end of the Skeleton Knight anime. Thank